Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, back with some more preseason FPL content. As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. So, I'm back now with an FPL draft update. At the time of recording, we've got just over 2 weeks to go ahead of the new Premier League season, and I'm at that point in my thinking process whereby am I happy with my team? And I want to be in a situation whereby I want to be confident with the picks that I have. I'm at a point that I'm not making as many changes that I'd want to be as I get closer towards game week 1 deadline. So, quick reminder of my team, and then I'm going to flag the changes that I have in mind for this draft. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it with a reminder of my current draft. So, I've got Sanchez in goal, a back line of Saliba, Trent Alexander Arnold, Pedro Porro, and then a front seven containing Palmer, Saka, and Kunku, Foden, Gordon, Watkins, and Tony, and a bench of Fabianski, Cannon, Weiss, and Harwood Bellis. So clearly, this is a no Haaland and no Salah draft. And with the updates that I'm going to make, I will have it as a no Haaland and no Salah draft. And again, time is eventually going to catch up with me, and I've got to make that decision whether I do lock in on that. But with the changes that I've got in mind, I feel that I'm only going to enhance this draft. So, in the event that I actually don't want Haaland and don't want Mohamed Salah, that it wouldn't be an issue for me. So, the first change I'm going to flag it's Sanchez. So, Chelsea have signed a new goalkeeper, and there's a big question mark on whether Sanchez will be the number one at the time of recording for game week 1 onwards. And of course, Chelsea have a very generous run of green block games after game week 1, where they've got Wolves, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, and Bournemouth. Effectively, you could have a healthy Chelsea cover in your team up until the point when you're potentially going to wild card. So that's something that was a motivation to have Sanchez. But if there is a question mark on him, then it clearly makes sense that I've got to remove him from my current draft. The other question mark was Pedro Porro, whereby, of course, the attacking returns were there last season, albeit not the number of clean sheets. But I feel that I can possibly enhance my team by not having him in just to get some more balance. The other one is Wout Weiss, and one of the reasons why I don't want to have him in my draft, for simple reasons. Of course, he'll be a sub one, sub two at the very best, but then even as a sub one and sub two, if I really wanted him, I wouldn't really start him until what, game week 5 at home against Everton, and then home against Bournemouth in game week 7. So almost seems like there are some better 4.0 options that have now emerged since my previous update. So I think I'm actually going to modify that pick there as well. And then onto my forward line. Again, Tony, we don't know where he's going to go right now. And as much as there is upside with having him, there is a massive question mark in terms of who he's going to be playing for come game week 1. So there are better options in his price range. So out he goes as well. And yeah, those are the 4 changes that I've got flagged right now. So I might do a bit more tinkering and we'll see where we end up. So the first simple change I want to do is the 4.0 defender slot. So in case you missed it, we did a video with 15 different content creators earlier this week, and Brighton have a player called Barco who's 4.0 million, and it's reported that Stupinan might be out for a while. And if that is the case, then Barco will certainly be getting a healthy number of minutes potentially for the early game weeks. And just as a reminder, last season only got just over 300 minutes. So again, as a 4.0 upside option, I think it makes more sense than Wout Weiss as an option there. And if I just flag up here, the fixtures, again, I wouldn't really start him in any of those 3 games. Ipswich at home, Forest at home in 4 and 5 potentially. So Barco at the very best would be a sub 1, sub 2 option. And then we'll assess if there is an option to potentially start him for those subsequent games. So in he comes. And on the goalkeeping front, the one that really catches my eye, just as out of interest in terms of goalkeepers, you're looking at the percentage owned at this moment in time. Again, Turner, he won't start, and his price might drop to 3.9 million. So I've decided that I'm not going to even, factor him in. Got David Raya, very popular pick, cheap entry into the Arsenal defence, but I feel that the value goalkeeper is someone in the 4.5 category, as we see time and time again on a points per million basis. So I am focused on getting another 4.5 million goalkeeper. Got Pickford, who has been 4.5 in the past, but 5.0 million. The only real ones I could factor in are Flecken, who's 4.5, Areola, who's 4.5 as well, and then further down, all the way down, I can't believe he's a differential, Dean Henderson, 4.5 million. So with his fixtures, you got Brentford in that opening tie. Again, with Brentford, they may not have Ivan Toney, so the attack will be somewhat dented. And I believe one of Brentford's recent new signings, who plays up front, is also injured. So potential opportunity for a clean sheet there. Got West Ham at home, got Leicester at home in the opening fixture as well. So again, he's flying under the radar, £4.5 million. So yeah, just surprised he's not been factored into many other drafts. And with Henderson in particular, from what I understand, Palace were fourth best for expected goals conceded in the whole of the Premier League last season. And with those fixtures factored in as well, I think he is someone that needs to be given more consideration in many other drafts as well. So in he comes to my draft, and got 2 spots left to fill, and I've got £13 million. The one player who I just cannot ignore, if I'm not going to get if I'm not going to get Haaland or Salah in my team, it has to be Isak. And with Isak, he's shown some sensational preseason form as well. 25 goal involvements last season, generous run of upcoming games. I think he is a no-nonsense pick, especially if you're not going to have Haaland or Mohamed Salah on your team. So he's up top there with Ollie Watkins. Now that leaves me with 4.5 million in the bank. And again, with no Mohamed Salah and no Haaland, I would ideally want to beef up my other options in defence from Man City, and it would be Gvardiol potentially if I was to get him in. But of course, I've got £1.5 million deficit there. So I'm thinking, would I downsize Watkins? I wouldn't. Isak, who I've just got in. Gordon locked in without Haaland or Salah. Same with Foden, Palmer, and you got Nkunku potentially and Saka. And the choice I have basically is I could go for a 4.5 defender and have Nkunku, or I could downsize Nkunku for a £5.0 million midfielder. Just have a quick look at the options here. You got, again, Rodgers is the one that really stands out, especially with the preseason form. Souček is there as well, but again, just remains. Might be good for X-Mins, but it remains to be seen in the kind of position that he'll be playing in. You've got Amad Diallo as well, showing some promise as well. But with a lot of these players, the risk is at the 5.0 category, even though there is upside, X-Mins could be somewhat of an issue. So just going to bring in Morgan Rodgers for now. Let's just see how that looks. At 3-5-2, my starting defenders would be Saliba, Alexander-Arnold, and Gvardiol. Again, it's just factoring in the fact, don't have Haaland, don't have Mohamed Salah. So my default would be Trent, Foden, and Gvardiol, absolute must-haves as a way of covering the absence of those two significant players. But then I've kind of weakened the midfield as well. And I do want Nkunku, who's been showing some promise in pre-season for Chelsea. But then the problem is that I start the season with both Nkunku and Palmer against Man City. So that's the other option as well. Alternatively, I could have Nkunku as my sub one against Man City, force myself into a 4-4-2 with a £4.5 million defender, with Trent, with Saliba and Barco. I don't really fancy that either. So that's something that I would need to factor in. With Morgan Rogers, the upside clearly is there. So it's really a case of, do I want to get rid of Nkunku? And then that is the tough one, really, that I need to factor in. But I feel that with Chelsea as well, with Maresca and the way that Leicester played last season as well, they had a healthy number of clean sheets in the Championship. So I also wanted some sort of defensive cover for Chelsea as well. But the problem with Chelsea right now is that with the new signing of Tosin as well, it doesn't seem clear to me who the back line will be for Chelsea. So I don't want to lock into a 4.5 million defender for Chelsea. But what I could end up with here is potentially have a 4.5 million Chelsea defender with Nkunku and Palmer as well. But then I'm just a bit concerned that might be a bit too much. So again, for me, it's don't have Haaland, don't have Mohamed Salah. I do need some balance, and I need to be able to justify it as well. Rodgers, will he get the X mins? That is the number one question. I don't want him as a fifth midfielder in the hope that he gets 20 minutes here and there. That's not why I have him in there. Otherwise, I'd just simply go back to Souček, who I had in my first official draft, and we can see that X mins isn't an issue for him, but the lack of goal involvements for him in the past 3 seasons is somewhat of a concern. There's just no one else really stands out. Onana, so look at him as well. Look at the number of goal involvements that he had for the previous season. Not much there. You're really down to what Rodgers as the £5.0 million option and Amad Diallo basically. So again, just going for a bit of upside, having that differential and having that balance as well. In my updated draft, I'm going to pick Rodgers, and with Rodgers as well, you got the peace of mind that okay, if X-Mins become an issue, then I'd have to force myself into a 4-4-2 formation as well. But I just want to make sure that I've got enough cover in my team in the event I do lock in without Mohamed Salah and without Haaland. So let's just confirm those transfers now. Out goes Sanchez, in comes Henderson, out goes Weiss, in comes Barco, Pedro Porro out, Gvardiol in, Cuckoo out, Rodgers in, Tony out, Isak in. So let's just confirm that. And let's just make sure I've got everything spot on there and do my super zoom in to confirm what my updated draft is. So as it stands right now, Henderson in goal for Palace with a backline of Saliba, Alexander-Arnold and Gvardiol. Midfield of Palmer, Saka, Foden, Gordon and Rodgers with a front line of Watkins and Isak. Now, let's just do some basic maths here. So Palmer, goal involvements last season, just to contextualize this, he had 35, and then he had Saka, goal involvements last season, he had 28. So what I'm going to do is just add the front six in particular, just add them up to see what the actual amount is, because in the draft I did previously, well, a few drafts back, it seemed to be a healthy amount without Haaland, albeit with Mohamed Salah. So let's just add the others up. Rodgers, I'm not going to really add his. I'll exclude him for it, but he had 4 last season. You got Foden, who, again, without looking, he had 27. There we go. Same with Gordon, 27 as well. And then let's just add that up as well. Got Ollie Watkins, who, again, had a lot of goal involvements last season. Just get it confirmed there, 37. And then you got Isak. Just add it here. There we go, 25 goal involvements. So from 6 players alone, I've got 179 goal involvements from last season, and I don't think you'll get any other combination with that many goal involvements from the previous season without Mohamed Salah and without Haaland. So just factor that in, that you've got the balance here, and you've got Rodgers as well, who offers that upside, albeit an unknown quantity and somewhat of a risk as well. And then you complement that with a very attacking defense with Alexander Arnold and Gvardiol as well, and with Saliba, most likely, from our perspective right now, it's basically most likely X-Mins from an Arsenal defensive perspective, considering that they've got a new defensive option who might affect the minutes of other defenders in the Arsenal defence. So that's something that is worth factoring in as well. If I wanted even more upside, I could probably go Saliba to Porro, and then Rodgers I could change to Hudson-Odoi. But again, I'd need to just factor in really like just a few other things there to make that as a potential route for me. So I'm happy with Rodgers and Saliba right now, but just due to the high ownership of Arsenal defenders in the game as it stands. But the option is I can go Porro and Hudson-Odoi as an alternative there. But yeah, if I'm not going to have Salah, I'm not going to have Haaland, I want Gvardiol, I want Foden, and I want Trent. So let's just go to the reminder of the bench as well. Just reorder the bench. So I'd have Barco as my sub 1, Harwood Bellis as my sub 3 against Newcastle. There you have it. That is my updated draft with a healthy number of goal involvements from the previous season. No Mohamed Salah, no Haaland, but remains to be seen if I do lock this in. But right now, it looks wrong, but it feels right. That's where I'm at. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? Is this an improvement on my draft from last week? And what I'm also going to do is use a rating tool from fpl.team to rate all of my drafts to date to see how this fits in as well. And yeah, that will just further contextualize how it's gone. As always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.